I don't feel together. Welcome to the first ever SAR Young Professionals Network, either from YPN, first educational event. Young Professionals Network is really, when you're young, everyone thinks you're younger. Well, and actually is anybody that is young at heart, anybody that interested in any of the events they have, it's really for anyone. But the group they have going is a very young group, very hardworking, and Lindsay Montalvo, right here, Lindsay. She is one of our newer brokers, and she wanted to get this group started as a way to network and meet other brokers. She's new in the community and didn't know people, and SAR's been wanting to do this for a long time. So this year we decided to dip our feet into it, and they have a lot of great plans. So I'd like to thank Lindsay. Sarah O'Connor is on the SAR board of directors. She's here in the registration room. Anthony is here, and Thina, and they're all part of the advisory board. So thank them for this event today. Also thanking you today is Mary Waldman with Summit Mountain Rentals. She really needs no introduction. She and Ross, huge people in our important people in our community, very important. So there's one of the event today. So with that, I'd like to welcome up Huck.
Hi everyone, Ross Capodanno, Business Development Manager at Summit Mountain Rentals. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy to sponsor today's class. I know that regulation is a massive topic, and that's what the class is going to be focused on. Typically, that's something I will sit in broker offices and discuss with realtors about all the changes. And if there's anybody from your office not here and you want us to come by and kind of do a one-on-one private session, we're happy to do that. I'd like to think we're the premier vacation rental manager in Summit. Mark and Mary started SMR 16 years ago. We've certainly grown to be what we are today, finely tuned machine managing properties throughout Summit County. Most of our properties are Breckenridge. We have a handful in Frisco, and we're now expanding into Silverthorne, Keystone, and Copper. I'd like to invite all of you, if you are needing rental projections, you can send that over to new@summitrentals.com. Typically takes us 24 to 48 hours to create a formal projection for you. And something interesting that maybe you haven't heard of up here quite a bit. These regulations, we've created a long period of so those are 30+ night rental. You have folks that are on the wait list for a license, or
you guys have a lot of success with that big term rental program.
yeah, I'll get this. Can we cut this music? Is there
Like literally nowhere.
I mean, I love it. Song. What was your name? Anthony. To answer your question, we have signed 6 long stay lodging properties over the last 7 or 8 months. They've done phenomenally well. Every single one of them had bookings anywhere from 30 nights to 5 months. Initially, we really thought that was going to be a market for 1-2 bedroom places here in town. We've gotten requests for 3-4 bedrooms for 4 to 5 months, and not just in peak season, that's in summer too. But we're really excited about it. Go ahead, Anthony.
Is there like a typical customer that you find with these midterm rentals, like travel nurses or remote workers, or like?
I think it varies. You know, we have anything from the grandparents that want to have a 3-4 bedroom and they can stay out here as much as they want, and then invite their kids periodically over the time they're here. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. I don't want to intrude too much on the class time. You can always email me, new@summitrentals.com. You know, if you have some more specific questions. I do a trail map here that our marketing team just put out. It's going to look very similar to this map here. It's a great guide for all the rental regulations here in county and every town. If you'd like more of these, let me know. If you're seeing something or you're not seeing something in here that you'd like to see, please let us know. We can in-house brand design. So, any questions about rentals? Mary and I have We're experts. We have all the experience. Give me just 1 second. Actually, go ahead, because I just lost my train of thought.
Can I confirm that you do projections from short to 12 month? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
so I do short-term rental projections. When I do long stay, that's what we coined, is for 30+ nights. And I break those out seasonally, so peak winter, off peak, peak summer, off peak. And then we do have a long-term program, 12 months leases. We can do that as well.
Are you quoting for DCSR loans as well?
Excuse me?
Or are you quoting for, I haven't done one yet, so if anybody in here has done a DCSR loan, where they use just the rental projections to give the loan?
Realtors approach me for projections to do that. I have no idea what their end result was. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
We're about good. All right, we also have, I'm gonna put these in the back. We have our vacation rental reports, kind of just summarizes what's happening in the county. What owners can do to help and, improve their rental. Anything that we can do to help you close a deal. It is involved. I'm happy to jump on a phone with the buyer and talk about the rental market and anticipated income and that sort of thing.
Well,
Thank you
so much. Thanks so much. All right, on to our favorite topic. So today is really designed to be a Q&A. So I would like you to think of it as you're on the phone with me, you've got some questions, what are they? And then it's great for everyone to hear what they are. I do have some stuff that I want to go over, and I do have some stuff from brokers, like consistent questions that I get, but I really would like to hear your questions today. First of all, kudos to every one of you that is here in person. You are making the effort to really understand these policies. I am shocked on a daily basis from phone calls that I get from brokers who don't know the jurisdictions in the town or in the county, right? A lot of people think that the county covers everything, and the county's policy covers all the towns. And so that's why I have this up here. I want to make sure that everyone knows, and I know, and that's the other thing I want to mention, some of the stuff is going to be really basic. Some of you are going to learn a lot, but I want to go through all of it. So with the county, and this is Summit County, with the county, their jurisdiction is all the green area. But then the gray areas and then the lines around are the actual towns. So they have totally separate jurisdictions. So the first thing that I recommend is you've got to know the county. Learn that as well as you can. It becomes a little bit hard when certain jurisdictions don't have specific border maps. You don't know exactly what it is. So the best way to learn, if someone calls me about a property, says, I don't know if this is in the town of Frisco or if this is unincorporated. The fastest, quickest way to learn that is to go onto this tool, do a search for the property, and within the listing, the data for that property, it lists the jurisdiction. So it will say Summit County, it will say Frisco, wherever. One thing SAR is working to do with the county and the town of Breckenridge, we've been working with them too, is that we like to see another field underneath that jurisdiction field for what zone or what type permit, so that you know right away. SAR has been working really hard to create a GIS overlay within the MLS. I've been talking about this for like a year and a half, and we actually have the product built, and we were told by our MLS provider that it would work, and it will work, but the data is only static, meaning that if anything changes, we give the wrong information, we're all liable. So SAR is not fully comfortable getting that up and running live. So we've been trying to work with so those are the main things on jurisdiction. The other thing that is super important is before you even start down this road with the short-term rentals on any property, whether you have a seller or you have a buyer, first thing you must do is have your client do their diligence. That is their responsibility. So what does that look like? That means even though you might know what the policy is, you tell them, call the town and talk to the town staff to find out what the policy is, or email. Email obviously is a lot better because then it's documented. But that way they're hearing it and they're not blaming you if it's wrong. So make sure you're doing those things. And that comes directly from Scott Peterson, who we all know, love, and respect. Okay, so, let's talk about what SAR's been doing. So again, I mentioned the overlay. We've been working on that. We're working with the towns to get the fields in. Oh, and by the way, getting the extra field in here is not going to be an easy project. This tool, which many of you know, is like a dinosaur. And the county has absolutely zero interest in making any changes to it. So the only way they're going to make changes is if we get our county commissioners to tell the staff to do that. County commissioners probably aren't too interested in doing anything for the community right now, as you may have read in the paper, or may have heard, is that there is a proposed lawsuit from the Peak 7 neighborhood against the county. And the county decided just this week that they're not going to do anything until this moves forward. They think that they are in the right and that everything they've done is legit, but I think as kind of a reprimand to the community, they are not making any changes. So that means one thing that we had really pushed for was the type 3. And the type 3 permit, that's the one that covers properties that are like lodges that are bigger, they're adjacent to the bus route. They have a shuttle bus, all that good stuff. They got rid of that during the last round of the ordinance, and they had agreed that they were going to bring it forward. And that they were going to pass it because they also support it. But they have now said, we're not even going to do that. Which is super unfortunate.
Well, that's not what Josh said today. Josh said they were looking at that. Me.
That's not what we have heard,
That's what he
but I hope you're right.
that's what he said, but who knows? But he actually did say that because I had a meeting with him today.
Okay, well, and
But they
yeah,
were looking at the type 3. He basically said type 3 permits.
okay, good. That's great news. Because what we flat out heard in the last week was they're not doing anything. So I hope you're right. And maybe it was just a scare tactic, who knows? So,
That's just what he said. Who knows? No.
okay. Okay, then the other thing, let's see, Keystone. So Keystone, as you know, just became a town. So Keystone had been in the resort zone of Summit County, which had their unlimited permits. So now what happens going forward? Well, Keystone becomes a town and then they put their own rules and regulations in. So everything that we are hearing is that Keystone's a resort area and that they want to keep it that way. But I don't believe anything until it's written down, right? Until it's debated and it goes before the county. So, just stay tuned on Keystone. Let's see, what else? I've got a few other things, but let's start taking some questions. Oh, you know what? I do have a couple other things, Steve. As you fall asleep over there. He's like, I know that stuff. So the other thing that SAR is working really, really hard on is that we have joined forces with the Western Mountain Resort Alliance, which is made up of ski resort realtor associations in the West. And Steve Fisher is our president of the Western Mountain Resort Alliance. And one of the things that this group is doing on the western side of the country is pushing the National Association of Realtors to do a study on the impacts of short-term rentals in resort communities. We've been working with them for 3/4 of a year almost to get this done. And we're kind of going back and forth on what this really looks like. But we are working on it. You know, for our community, all the ordinances already passed. So what we'd like to see here is a study that shows what are the impacts once an ordinance is passed. Truly, some of the stuff that we've said is property values are going to go up because the community is going to become more empty. You know, there's going to be homes are going to sit empty. And we hear that they're going to go, property values are going to go down initially, but then once people hear that, you know, short-term rentals are not allowed, people are going to go, oh, buy that property because, hey, I'm not going to have short-term rentals around me. Is that really true? Let's see, does it become a more exclusive community? And then people aren't spending money in town. And then our local workers are impacted, right? So there's a lot of components to this. And we want to know really what this looks like. And then our next efforts, which I had a phone call today about with NAR, is how do we then unwind these ordinances? When we start to see these negative impacts and we have proof from data, actual substantive, unbiased data that shows that, how do we start down the road of unwinding those ordinances? So that's our goal. It's going to be hard to find all that data in some communities. They say that the short-term rental regulations have no impact. In some communities, they have significant impact. So just know that that's one thing that SAR and WMRA are working very, very hard on. So what questions do you have? And I think we're gonna end up just bouncing all over the place on all the towns and county and all sorts of different topics, but give me any questions that you have.
There a place to go to find out? Because it seems to me as though the listing brokers are not putting in the listing, they're just saying, call the county or call the town. And they're not saying in zone 3, there's no applications being taken right now or whatever. Is there a place to go to just look at like Asgard House? Is that zone 1? Is that zone 2?
Yes, absolutely. So in the MLS at the moment, the MLS does have a drop down, and the MLS board has spent a ton of time trying to tweak the short-term rental fields and the long-term rental fields to get it right for you. And it's really a struggle. If you listen to the conversations, it's not an easy thing. But if you go on to the town of Breckenridge's website, they do have a GIS overlay, kind of like what we're talking about for the town, and you can do a search.
And the county has one too?
No. Frisco or Silverthorne does, one of them does. I can't remember.
The MLS required field, is that a drop down of what, is it required for the listing agent to put it in there yet?
I think it
is.
Yes, thank you.
Put something in.
Well, and that's the other thing is if you hold. One of the other, I forget, escape or something. So you hold another button, you can click more than one.
Okay,
So I saw that in someone's listing and I was putting in a listing. And so I was like, there's gotta be a way to do it. Instead of just choosing one, like HOA allows short-term rentals.
mhm,
You can put in more than one.
yeah, okay.
It's not the shift key, it's the other key. Control.
I'm not an expert. Okay, what else do you have? And I, as far as the information goes, I have a mini surprise for you at the end on the information, but yes.
Without having a crystal ball, any ideas as to how long it would take for someone to get a permit and incorporated? How many ballpark years?
Yeah, it depends.
Goes.
That's right. Amy can answer that question, but the county has projections which are far off from what Amy says. So the county says, it's all based on the different basins. And we'll talk about that in a second, but most will say 2025 at the earliest for 2 of the basins, and then the other 2 are like 2030. Amy, what do you really think?
Well, when I ran the numbers, I used just an analysis that was for sales. Okay, so if the sales continued the way that they were continuing, then it was anywhere from 6 to 21 years. With 6 being the wilderness, that's up lower. Can you help me with what basin that is?
Oh, that's the
Lower blue.
yeah.
Upper blue was about 9. Snake River was 14 or 15, and I can look it up. And then Frisco 10 Mile was 21 years.
But I bet Amy's data is more accurate than the county's, but I hope the county's is right?
No, they added their analysis after I provided them mine. And so they said, well, we're looking back in time at who gave up their licenses, like just simple attrition, not necessarily sales. And mine was simply sales. So I just assumed that there wasn't going to be attrition, because if you have a license right now and you're not selling your property, you're not giving it away.
Yeah.
But some people miss deadlines. We saw people miss deadlines. They didn't get their paperwork in right. And with this bedroom fee, they're making it exorbitant to have a license if you're not going to use it. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Great point. Trish and then Jack.
Oh, I didn't have a question.
Oh, you were just, okay. Yeah, thank you, Jack.
My question, along the line of the first question is, and it's been what people have been asking me. And do we have any kind of idea when we might have something put together, like even on a sheet of paper? Is that what we're gonna get?
Okay, I'll just tell you now. Lindy and I have worked really hard to put together, Lindy's our marketing director. If you don't know her, she's amazing, to put together a document that includes for every single town and county in Summit, Park, and Lake counties, all of the general policies, the ordinances, maps when they're available, and any other information that you might need, with contact information at each of those. So I know it's taken us a while, but we wanted to wait till Summit County had passed theirs and everything was finalized, and we'll go from there. But it's all links, a lot of links. So we'll send it, but you can use it to send on to your clients and just pass that along. Or you do it for yourself. Yeah.
I have a question just on. Someone asked me, does it, it says 2 people per bedroom, but what if it's a studio? Does that, does that matter? Can studios still be Airbnb,
I think that's a 2 people.
It's a 1 bedroom.
She did as a 1 bedroom, okay.
2 plus 2. depending on the town. How is a studio considered in terms of occupancy? And of course, the occupancy is different for every town, but generally, most of them are 2 per bedroom plus 2. So that would be a 1 bedroom, so 2 plus 2. Yeah.
So in terms of the, when it comes to the exceptions, locals living here, I have a friend who's abroad. But like a lot of people in the county, she has lived in the county for 15 years. But her work is in Eagle County, it's in Shavy County. She works all over the place. So she's a local, she lives here, she pays taxes here, but her work is elsewhere. Are there any, I wouldn't say a loophole, but like, is there an exception for people that? Oh,
I don't know if it's
she's a primary resident, but her
Wants to
job,
rent it when
she
she's-
works for the jail system, so she's all over. So
I would reach out to the, depending on where. I would reach out to the municipality. And ask about that. Right, but generally they stick to the rules on that, and that comes from the deed restrictions, right?
There's a different permit
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah,
primary resident that wants to rent a room.
yeah, like type 1 for some.
if she's a type 1, I mean, she's identifies as a type 1, but her work is elsewhere, is that?
Identifies.
Yeah, I would reach out to the county.
Right here.
They're probably not gonna give you the answer you want, fortunately. Other questions? Yes, Stuart.
What about enforcement? Like, how is the county? I mean, like, what are the ramifications? Like, hey, what if I book 50 bookings? I mean, and I get caught. I mean, what's the thought on that? I've had a client that in Dillon, he did 88 bookings in 2022. So he's very concerned, like, well, how am I, I haven't seen anything about fines or what they're gonna do or.
Okay, so Summit County has an extensive list in their ordinance of how they're gonna enforce it. A lot of this comes down to, they talked a lot at all of the towns in the county about how they were gonna enforce this. And there is a system, I think it's Granicus or something like that, that actually it's a town system where they're able to track it. They have hire people.
You say, how many new people are they gonna have to hire
Right,
to do this?
right, and create more.
What's the fine or what are they gonna do? Are they, I mean, like, how far, what are they gonna do if someone is breaking? I guess.
Well, they can take, Summit County actually said they can take your permit away, or your license away. And it's, it has to do with ordinance, noise, garbage violations, but I think not having a permit was for that too.
I know people are just gonna rent it without a permit.
Yeah, there are gonna be plenty of people that are
Yeah.
gonna try and work on the system if they aren't already. They always happen, right? There's always people that don't want to get a permit. And they let stuff, and I'm sure you guys hear more than I do, but I've heard even in my own neighborhood, people getting in trouble. For not having a permit, and they find it on any of the websites. So there you have people that are literally trolling. Checking to make sure that they have a license, and that's been the case for a long time. That's nothing new. They want your property tax money. There's room up here, Deshaun.
Here.
It's our president, right?
It is usual.
What other questions do you have?
So right now, Copper, Keystone and the town of Blue River exempt.
So copper, like you mean have no,
No regulation.
yeah, okay, so Dylan, Copper and Keystone are in the resort zone of the county. And they have unlimited permits because the county believes those are actual resort areas and they should allow permits. Then there is Tiger Run is unlimited permits, also a resort. And then Sawmill and 4 o'clock subs in Breck. Because it's this little circle in Breck. Dillon and Blue River.
It's just the town, like Dillon right here, that's not the valley, right? Yeah, not the cove.
That's on the county.
Yeah.
That's all.
Dillon Valley is the county. And keep in mind too, that's a great point, is that as much as we don't like it, the county has targeted Dillon Valley and Wilderness as being where the locals should live. So I don't see them ever changing their policy. I know I every day. I mean, Kim Hebron talks about how her parents developed Wilderness and it was designed to be short-term rentals, but they don't care.
Isn't that steering?
Don't use that term, Steve.
Yeah.
What other questions do you have? I know you've got to have some because I hear them. Steven.
This is more of a 20,000 foot view question, but what communities across the country have been able to challenge? Because I haven't done a whole lot of research, but what I've done, I haven't seen many or any. Are you aware of it?
Successful?
Yeah, are you aware?
Yeah, there's not very many. And when they are successful, for example, Aspen just challenged like a year and a half ago, they challenged their town, the city of Aspen, and they won. The Aspen Board of Realtors challenge, and they won, but it was based on procedure. So they were all excited that they won, but then what happened is because it was procedure, the town went back, changed their the procedures, did it all over again, and then they were done. So it was a lot of money spent, and they think it had value because it put the city on alert that people were paying attention to them and what they're doing. But, and now they're having conversations, they're getting realtors elected to office in the city, trying to change things, which is another great point in that we really need to get realtors to run for office. That is the best way to make a difference. If you're interested or you know anyone in any of the towns or county, reach out to me. NAR has a candidate training academy that we're thinking about bringing here. If we can find people, we will train you. It's just a matter of having, a pro-business, standpoint that will support the real estate industry. And we can help you quite a bit. So
So going back to the question of, has anybody else
yeah.
challenged New Orleans? And Frisco actually changed their tone a little bit with regard to what happened in New Orleans.
Perfect.
So I think that nobody's challenged it in the way that we would like, but you're seeing municipalities pay attention to what's going on across the country.
Yeah, they're definitely paying attention. But most of the stuff have been, the ones that have won have been scenarios where they don't work here for whatever reason. So believe me, we have looked, we have tried to get the help from NAR on this and really dived deep on this. And SAR did pay for legal research a couple of years ago through NAR to just look at, we do this regularly. NAR has a lot of cool benefits for associations. And one of them is that they have land use attorneys that literally we can give them an ordinance and say, review this and give us the talking points to take to the town. Or, we see problems with this. This is okay. Ask this question, ask that question. So that's what we did with the legal research that we did was with the town of Breckenridge. So, we have done a ton of work on this that maybe you haven't heard about all the time, but there's always stuff going on in the background on this. And in fact, Sean and was it that when we met with the town of Breck? Jim Schlegel and I met with Dick Carlton and Todd Rankin a few months ago to say, hey, you know, keep that conversation going, because part of all this is even after they passed it, yeah, we're still really pissed off about this stuff, but we've still got to continue those conversations and have those relationships so that if there is an economic downturn, we can go to them and say, guess what? You can change this policy, it might help bring in some money into your coffers and let locals do what they need to do. So, or second homeowners. So, that is one thing that we talk a lot about with the towns and the county, from, and SAR talked a lot about the fact that now was not the time to pass these ordinances because we are walking down the path towards the recession. You know, the real estate market has changed. There's low inventory. There's going to be natural attrition in our industry, and they didn't care. They didn't believe that this was a factor. In fact, they don't think that their ordinances are going to have any impact on what's happening nationally, which is really hard to believe. Really hard to believe. What else, Brenda?
I just find it kind of funny that, at least in Breckenridge, they're like, we're doing this because the town's getting too crowded. It's changing the character of the town and whatever. But obviously timeshares bring in more people to that town on a weekly basis than any short-term rentals. Any legislation going on there?
No, and you know, we asked the town of Breck, we asked Eric Mamula directly, and then when we did our pizza and politics with the town, and he said that, well, his answer was basically, well, you know, they do a lot of great things for the community. And also, right, because you guys don't, I mean.
Yeah, they take a parking lot that we.
Yeah, right. But they also said that, you know, they fit the description, they meet the zoning requirements. And so they're able to do that, but they do have, you know, affordable housing restrictions, you know, the requirements for that, so. Yeah, and if anyone has any more information on any of these topics that are being asked, feel free to chime in. Yeah, Henry.
This is the point that we can use. I had a local appraisal done on a property in Wilderness. And the appraiser stated there's been a 1.5% month decline for the last year due to short-term rentals as one of his two reasons why per month. And that was from a local appraiser up here.
You email me that person just so I can talk to them, okay. See, and I want this information from you all too, because it gives us fodder to talk to the towns and continue those conversations. Kaya.
Do we have a committee for this to help you guys since you're spending so much time? Do we need to start rounding people?
Her.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll always take help.
Or form,
Yeah,
forming something?
how are you gonna chair that?
No.
I would love some help. So if anyone is interested in working on this more, and I know there's people in the room that attended every single meeting, but if there are people interested in continuing work on this, it is a top priority for us. And I will tell you too, don't feel bad. Like, this isn't just Summit County, like nationwide with all these other ski resort associations that we've been working with, they're all in the thick of it. Every municipality is doing something different. And they all look to each other to see what they're doing. So we heard that Jackson Hole, their town manager, one of their city council members got on a call to watch what was happening in Park City. And we know in Summit County, they actually base part of their policy on Palm Springs. So they're paying attention.
Steamboat win something?
They did, and then they lost again. You know, Vail has done fairly well, and part of that is they had some good data. But also, Vail is all condos and high rises. And they have a lot of hotels, a ton of hotels. Which we don't have any hotels, and that's part of our problem.
So Sarah,
Yeah.
Park City started going down this path, but they took a step back. You know what caused them to take the step back?
I don't. Do you know, Steve?
I don't know, we chatted with them a bunch about it.
Okay. I'll find out.
We know Vail let it naturally unsettle itself. They reached a saturation point of short-term rentals to where not enough people were making enough money, so they just gave them back.
It's great.
And that's the thing too, right now, I think the short-term rental market is down. In
Mary?
general, the rental. Because there's not as many people in my neighborhood as I have seen in the past, and I know they still all have licenses.
From a property manager standpoint, this past winter was definitely down from the previous season. There's many reasons. The just demand is soft. People can go elsewhere as well. And also, I think that the numbers will, we look at, for example, Breckenridge sales collection data for the past 8 months, and it's every month has been going down. So there's less people coming. And also, there are more homes being left vacant. The second homeowners are occupying, not renting. And then these homeowners who are buying, they can't get a license, so it's empty. So there's multiple economic factors that drives this, and that's what we had pleaded with Breckenridge Town Council is to, with COVID, it's really a knee-jerk reaction of the people coming into the county that 2021, and let's let this settle down and see the impact, because it's exactly what happened here. So let's see how all this, we need more time to have this data, I like these data.
Yeah, and that's one thing we learned from the South Lake Tahoe Realtor Associations. They actually sued and it went to the Nevada Supreme Court or California. I always get those mixed up, but went to their state, California, yeah, Supreme Court, and they lost. And they had literally done parades down Main Street, opposing the stuff. And they have spent the past 5 years trying to regain the realtor reputation in the community because they have fought it so hard. And so they're doing every community event they can. They're supporting affordable housing. They're supporting the homeless people in their area. So that, there's two sides to this. You can't always be progressive unless you're willing to take that. But what they also said is, their municipalities, it's now been 5 years in South Tahoe. And the town is saying that, yeah, it's working. Whereas the Realtor Association is saying, no, COVID is still part of that 5-year data. It's going to take several years before we really see the impacts of this. It's not going to be 6 months from now. It's not going to be when the recession happens, whenever it happens.
Do you know of a place that's been doing it like 5 years and has been successful? Do you know of any?
The only one that I have heard of came from a Frisco town council member who said it was very successful in New York, that it's been in place for years. I don't even know of a resort area. You were in that meeting, or Steve was too. Do you remember what Andy said? Okay. So.
Placid or something. I don't know if it's maybe the Catskills. I can't remember.
No. So. Other.
So what did Silverthorne pass? Because on this little thing that we've got, doesn't say that no new licenses are available.
Oh, Silverthorne does allow licenses. I apologize. I didn't include that. They have a maximum, but Silverthorne did an interesting thing in that they have hardly any short-term rentals right now. But they kind of felt like, oh, we got to do something. We don't want to become like Breck. So they passed an ordinance, and basically when they passed the ordinance, it allowed for 900 additional permits, and it's going to take them a year. They feel like they've got 5 or more years before they're even maxed out on.
That's only in the downtown zone. You cannot get a license outside of that. Because they've made their cap higher than what it is. So, only the new.
Yeah.
Some of Sky.
That's right. No, there's still licenses available.
Like
In
30.
the other zones, some of them have 40 or 50 left, but they're not tapped out yet.
I think they're seeing a lot of people get them when they weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
They really, every time I talk to town staff, town manager, community development director, they really felt like it was going to be years and years before they got it. And they were getting it in months. Not surprisingly. The other thing that I wanted to mention too is on Silverthorne, and probably most of you know, but it has been a call that I've gotten recently, is that there's 2 parts to the Silverthorne policy. First, there's the cap. And then there's the type of license. So people get confused about, I'll say one thing and then I go, but wait, what about this? Well, that's the second part. So first, in order to get a license, you got to be able to be under that cap, right? And there's a number for that cap and it's all based on the basin. So that's where the basin comes in, and there are basin maps on the county website and also in the document that we are sending you tomorrow morning. So that's where you first go, is figure out if you can get a license. And then you look at if you want type 1 or type 2. And type 1 is for locals, we've done said, and then type 2 is for everything else. Henry?
What are we gonna do to try and get people to note up here that they're still welcome? I feel with all of this, we've had a great publicity of how the towns are saying you're not welcome as a second homeowner. What can we do to let our customers and the general public know they're still welcome?
Great question. Who's a marketing expert?
Sean is the chair.
It's an interesting thought, but I think it starts with us and how we interact as well. I mean, I think the whole perception in some counties somewhat lost as far as this being a great place and we share it with everybody. I think numbers need to change. I mean, you were here in 08. How bad was it to come back from that? You know, whenever people really need something, then they're willing to change. And maybe it's that from a marketing perspective, we've really tried to promote, I guess, within reason, us as realtors and coming to our community and using, you know, a local expert. But yeah, I think it's a grassroots thing more than it is marketing campaign.
That's more ideas. Let us know what
Yeah.
that campaign might look like. We'd be interested. Lucia and then Dan.
I was just curious if you have heard any whispers of anyone adopting, any of the towns adopting the use it or lose it, sort of like Blue River discussed. I thought that was.
They talk about Blue River does.
Frisco did.
Actually enforces.
Yeah, there are a few. I'm trying to, there are Blue River, Frisco, you know, and then some of the municipalities outside of Summit County, which we're talking about Summit, but we can talk Park and Lake because they have some pretty strict policies too. And Montezuma, FYI.
How many licenses there?
None. Montezuma does not allow any rentals shorter than 180 days. Crazy, right? Park and Lake, hold on, I gotta look it up because I was just researching this stuff. And the Park County people should chime in on this stuff too, but
And they already have a waiting list.
yeah. Yeah,
Almost like 12, I think.
hold on, I got it all, let's see.
So while Sarah's looking, so it's just Blue River, but the person use it or use it. And you don't file taxes, and I believe it was, 14 days of rental, and it could be, just a few $100s, but it just, the owner has to make the effort. Then you will, be forfeiting your license. Frisco, when they passed this 25% license cap, they thought it would take, years to get that cap. And of course, within 9 months, we hit the cap. And I've been in Frisco for 16 years, so I've approached Frisco about instituting. We did this prior to, and now that it has already hit the cap, why don't we look at that, use it or lose it? And oftentimes it's really just a man resource, despite the fact that they're now charging 10%, 10.25% of sales and lodging tax, that they don't have the resources to run their 800 and something number of licenses to see. All it is to see, did you file a tax return, sales tax for the entire year? And if you did not, then you're just sitting on that license. Please release it so that someone else who will contribute to our economy won't use it. So I think there'll be some more discussion of that developing. They said they needed to let this sit for a year before they revisited it.
They always want to sit and wait, right? And the other side, I mean, that's really important, is we want people to be using them and open it up for people that are going to use them. But at the same time, I know people in the community, we all do, and realtors who are close to retirement and they're thinking they're going to rent out their house so they can go travel. And if they have to use their permit in a year, that might be hard to do. So it's a tough situation. none of this is good, right? There's no. Does anyone see any good in these ordinances? Thinking amongst ourselves. What else? Amy?
I just want to bring up the PR and the face of our community, because I have been so enmeshed in this, as you know, and I was getting really negative, really mad. And the other day I said, you know what? I'm just gonna stay positive. And when people come in and ask me questions and they want an STR, I'm like, let's look at Copper and Keystone. Let's go look in the town of Dillon. We're going to Zone 1 and Resort 1 and Resort Zone. You know, when I showed some properties yesterday and my clients, they're all upset about the Breckenridge rules, but they said, you know, our friends said, well, where are you going to buy a property? And they said, well, wherever our realtor tells us we can. You know, so I'm just going to approach it that way and just stay really positive and say, it's not that you can't get a short-term rental license. You just have to look here. This is where we're going to shop.
And I think that's a great point is that, and why I give you guys kudos for being here, because this is a great way to separate and distinguish yourself and show the value of being a realtor. You are educating on something that they have no idea. So make sure you know this stuff and learn it, because then you can do exactly what Amy said. Dan, do you have it?
I was just gonna speak to Henry's comment of how do we continue keeping that people are welcome here. I mean, a lot of us have been here for a while, and I think we keep doing what we're doing. I mean, the point of being here hasn't changed in 20, 30, 40 years for some people. And I think we just continue selling Summit County for what it is, you know, outdoor recreation, skiing, lifestyle, the whole shebang, and STR being a secondary portion of that. You said that you had to move here and you have to STR. You know, there's still the lifestyle aspect of knowing that you live here, your property's still going to, for the most part, appreciate at some point. And so you focus the point from short-term renting to saying, hey, you have the bragging rights of saying that you own a mountain town. You can use it. You can be here. If you don't make, you know, $60,000 back, $100,000 in a year, you know, you still have the value of a property here that you can use. You can lend out to your friends. You can do everything else. But I don't think the selling changed by any means.
I guess I would disagree in listening to our county commissioners on TV say that they were hoping that the prices would go down in Wilderness so locals could afford to buy there. What does that tell the public who's invested in Wilderness, that the county commissioners are specifically doing this to lower the prices?
Yeah, it's a great point. And you know, the data that you provided earlier, that 1.5%,
Yeah.
1.5% a month, that's what they want to hear. That's exactly what we want to hear. So we get excited when we go, oh, see, the numbers are showing, you know, what we told you, but they go, oh, great, that's what we wanted. Right?
So adding on to what Amy's saying about PR and to Henry and is that a lot of these ordinances that has been passed was because the commissioners and the town council have heard from a lot of other side of local workforce, right? That are desperate for housing, that are complaining about rent increase and whatnot. So really our job as locals who make living in tourism is to educate other fellow locals, because all that squeaky wheel is they don't understand all the benefit that the tourism brings to our local economy. We are 85–90% run by tourism. So, and those people who are complaining make their living off of tourism jobs, restaurants, you know, retail, everything else, including us. So the fact that they have been misinformed, that's really what's happened here, is that we have not done a good job of educating the public, the benefits that tourists, second homeowners, and the businesses that directly support lodging, real estate have brought. All these peaks being developed, all the rec centers, the flowers on the main street, all the variety of new restaurants that have opened up. We wouldn't have any of this if there weren't tourists eating it, right? So I know that it's difficult when you're in a conversation and someone's really down on STR. Hey, aren't you the STR lady? Like, no, I'm one of you, right? I make a living here just like you, but yes, there are challenges, but it isn't curbing, it's just killing the golden goose that's feeding you. And that's what's really happening. So, you know, half the battle is, yes, getting new people elected on town councils and commissioners who understand pro-business. And the other half is educating our own local community. And that just happens, you know, one person at a time, so that they don't have to run over to Eric and, you know, like the commissioner and say, hey, my life is miserable because I can't find anything. Well, that's not going to help paint a good picture of reality. And that's only going to take time. But I think that you will see more PR campaigns coming out of Summit Alliance of Vacation Rental Managers and other organizations trying to educate, you know, big ads coming out saying, hey, you've been fed a wrong Kool-Aid. You got to wake up, because what all this has happened is it's actually going to hurt you in the long run. But you don't recognize it because you're just looking, you know, at today's numbers. So it's all coming. It's just going to take time.
I was in the post office a number of times in line, and there were locals there, and oh yeah, well, you know, the short-term rentals are the reason for no local housing. And it's like, that is such a wrong idea. It's not. You know, they're $1 million, someone who owns over $1 million home is not gonna rent to 5 snowboarders. That's just the way it is.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yo. We're gonna be a protected class soon.
That's not what I mean. Anyway.
Snow riders, please.
It's no right. Yeah, I was like, you're informed. That's just a narrative, really.
Yeah.
And so I agree totally. It's just a narrative that people were fed that the short-term rentals are the problem. Let's talk about the timeshares. I mean, they're building 3 more. The timeshares add 2. This is my thing, is that I've been thinking about it for a long time since all of this happened. I've lived here almost 40 years. So, you know, we overdeveloped. We overdeveloped for the amount of people that can live here to support the overdevelopment. You know, Boulder, they stopped development, you know, they put a moratorium on development sometimes, you know, a long time ago, like in the 80s or the 90s. And, you know, we never did that. We just keep building, we keep building. We need people to take care of those places. We need workers to take care of second homeowners places. You know, we can't find anybody because there's no workers because we grew too fast.
Yeah.
And no one's really looking at that. They're blaming it on short-term rentals. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. So I agree.
Great point.
Another thing too, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with Mary's point, when you're talking to every person in town to help have that conversation, definitely helps to talk to those people in zone 3 that we've lived here forever. That's our retirement. You're one of those people. Now look at how prices are skewed if you can't short-term rent your property. So all of a sudden the value on yours has dropped this much. I don't think our locals understand that. I don't think they get how much our prices are going down because of that. Our homes.
Yeah. The locals,
Yes.
yeah, local realtors and property managers and employees, yeah.
You know, for a long time, the communities, the town has relied on second homeowners to provide workforce housing, right? So they just didn't build enough rentable apartments, didn't keep up with the new high-end developments, housing for workers. Just thought, oh, second homeowners will continue to rent at $800 a bedroom, $1,000 a bedroom. Well, after COVID, when the demand spiked up, all they did was adjust to current market pricing, except now it became a lot more than what they were used to. So yes, the towns are all doing what they can. I mean, the article today, Frisco is going to put in 94 units, you know, right there and off of Main Street. So it's all happening. Breckenridge will eventually develop that block 11 and have, you know, a few hundred more. So come 3 to 5 years, you know, you don't have to go build 1,000 units to make a difference. Just a little incremental building, construction, apartments will help again, but that we're looking at 3 to 5 years before this thing adjusts. And for all of you who've been here for so long, you know, you see the up and downs. That's what's gonna happen, and you just have to outlast it.
The other thing that nobody was looking at during the whole thing was that I live in Breck Heights. And High Point Drive, used to be like accessory apartmentville. There was like every house had a little apartment in. And over the years, because I've sold a lot in my neighborhood, they got rid of them. We couldn't have them. We had to move out the range, and we had to take the 220 out, and we couldn't have those apartments. And those things were really supporting a lot of the local, the seasonal, because they would rent those like just for the winter or whatever. Like we had one in our old house. We were charging $500 a month, right? So that was an affordable way. If they gave an incentive to homeowners to start having those accessory apartments again, that would open up a huge thing, but they won't let you. Like we want to
The
build,
county will allows them now.
but you have to deed restrict it.
Correct.
Restrict their property.
I know. Some people are happy to do it. I hear it daily, but I know. Yeah. Yeah, it is frustrating, but it reminds me of like, things go cyclically here in this county, right? It used to be that everyone had to landscape when they did remodels. Now you're not allowed to put trees in. It's a struggle.
A tree in the Highlands, now they clear cut the.
Yeah.
But it's historically, to Deshawn's question, back in the early 80s, there were the same issues we're having now. The employee housing wasn't much of, and there was none built. So we've done a tremendous amount of employee housing from back in the 80s when there was nothing there.
Yeah.
And so we've got, a lot to be thankful for, or shall I say, the locals that are getting the benefits of the employee housing have a lot to be thankful for, because when you came in the 80s, there wasn't any.
Yeah, and I always remember, some of you will remember Kelly Brady, who is a broker here. She posted on social media, and I can't find it. I've gone back a gazillion times, but there's a plaque somewhere in Breckenridge that talks about workforce housing was an issue in the 1880s. Think about the gold rush.
That predates me.
So it's been an issue ongoing. You're right. It is nothing new. Lindsay.
I don't have answers to any of the questions, but circling back to Henry's PR question, YPN is going to start putting on a ton of volunteering and philanthropic events. So that's a great way to get involved in the community, in the realtor aspect, and get into the community and spread, all the good things that we're doing and helping locals, fighting housing and things like that. So just plugging YPN, that's totally on our agenda to get involved in the community as realtors.
And that's another great way, is to show that, we are locals, like we've been talking about, and we're involved in our communities and we invest in our communities. Because I remember Eric Mamula saying, the mayor of Breckenridge, actually saying, I don't want to hurt the second homeowners who are here half the year and they're volunteering their time at the NRO or whatever it is. I want to support those people because they're invested in our community. Whereas the people who just have these investment properties and they never come, he doesn't care about them. So there's always value in being invested in your community. Yeah, for your real estate business too, right? What else? Yes, Tina.
I have a clarifying question about the deed restrictions on the ADUs, because I've seen properties that have restrictions from way back in the day, like in the 80s, that are only on the ADU. Is the new policy that if you have an ADU, you're restricting the entire property? Because, okay, so you're still, your primary unit is not restricted, it's just the ADU. Correct. Okay. Yeah.
But then can you live in the ADU and rent out your property, like the main house? Can you?
Yes.
Live
On the county policy, you can.
Can,
As
okay.
long as you're working.
As long as you're, as a realtor local.
Yeah. Other comments or questions? Is this helpful? Are you getting information you need? At least it's a good, like,
Venting.
yes.
Yeah.
venting. He walked in here saying he was gonna vent.
The update on Keystone, and will that have any impact? I haven't heard anything. but-
Yeah, I haven't heard, what I said earlier was that Keystone is, as they become their new town, we'll have to wait and see, but the indications in the paper, I haven't talked to anyone. But is that they are gonna continue to allow them, but on what level? You know,
I have talked to.
Oh, yeah, you, yeah.
and they know the value and they know the revenue that is being driven by them. They have no intent to restrict them whatsoever.
Great.
And that's cutting off still in the same area that it is, right? Like at Keystone Golf Course, everything over is the Cove.
Well, the ranch is restricted. The what? The ranch.
Yeah, the ranch.
The ranch, not the east or the west, it's just the ranch.
Because of the HOA.
And that's still a possibility everywhere, as the HOA can come in and make changes.
Should be good.
But the city itself is, they see the value. They know that by allowing them, it's going to keep the property taxes down, and so they have no intent of restricting.
That's good news. That reminds me real quick is that I had a broker call me today. You guys call me with all these creative ideas. I love it. But a broker called me the other day and suggested that maybe in Breckenridge, we somehow do a campaign to tell the HOAs like Gold Camp and some of those like that to actually ban long-term rentals. Really helps us, but I love the creativity. Well, it's creative, right?
Unfortunately, the town of Breckenridge owns a lot in there, so.
Oh, great.
They would vote it down.
Yeah. Okay, someone had something.
What has come of the idea of taxing or changing the tax on short-term rentals to be a business tax at 28% from the legislature? Is anything happening more on that?
Yeah, so it died last year. Our state rep Julie McCluskey, we've had lots of conversations with her and she is very interested in staying in touch with us. And I don't think she really supports that idea, but it is floating right now at the state capitol with different bills. There's not a ton of time left for them to do anything. Mary, do you have any more on that? In those
No,
discussions?
so there are many different ways. So they recognize, if homeowner is gonna be charged 4 times more than what they're currently paying today, they're not going to rent because there's no income in it. You actually lose money by renting, by paying more property tax. It's gonna kill tourism in Colorado. So instead, the latest bill that was proposed is actually by the governor, is they want to conduct a study looking at all the registered LLC ownership in the state. Okay, well, what is that going to tell you? Because there's a lot of long terms registered under LLC. And they will use that data and they have a, 2-year, they gave themselves 2 years or something like that to go look and see how many properties are owned by all these LLCs and then dissect from there. And, they won't go as extreme as, 28%. They're talking sometime in half. But I think that every year we will see the politicians trying to get more money out of us. It's so that, and there's a lot of people, the commissioners constantly say, no, this is a business. Well, what about an accountant working out of your home? You guys working out of your home, that's a business, but you're not being classified as a commercial property. So there's going to be a lot of arguments and pushback against that, but they're trying to get creative. So we'll deal with it. Sarah's staying on top of it and you'll be doing a lot more. That is a big threat to Colorado.
So it is ongoing.
What happened with the rent control?
So the rent control bill, we owe a lot of thanks to our state senator, Dylan Roberts, who is our new senator. We had him here a couple of times at SAR. He unbelievably in committee it passed the House overwhelmingly. And it went to the Senate, it's in the Senate, and he sits on the committee, it's reviewed by a committee, and then it would get reported out or pulled indefinitely. If it gets reported out, then it gets to a vote for the full Senate. In the Senate committee that he's on that would review this, he is the one person that can kill the bill. He has the ability to do that. So, and we have lobbied him hard. You've seen the calls to action. There's a reason for that. He told us last year on the campaign that he didn't support rent control. So, and we've bugged him consistently and had email conversations, regular conversations with him, and he is staying the course and he is opposed to rent control. So we do not expect it to go anywhere this year.
But it's still sitting in their committee.
Oh, yeah.
What's the procedure on that? Can you just sit there and then the legislative session ends? And then start
It's on the
over?
vine.
Does that start over next year or in the fall?
That would start over in the fall if they wanted to bring it up again. And it really wouldn't start in the fall, it would start now. Like as soon as the session's over, they'd start talking about how they can modify the bill to get it passed. And the other thing is the governor was totally opposed to rent control, which is unheard of. A Democrat governor, he's totally opposed to rent control for the reasons that we're opposed to it. Absolutely. So, and he can veto it as long as there isn't, I'm not going to get into the details, but the super majority, all sorts of stuff in the House and Senate can cause, if they have a super majority, then his veto would not work. But in this situation, they do not have a super majority in the Senate, so he could veto. So lots of fun stuff going on state capitol, which I hadn't planned to talk about RPAC, but if you're not contributing to RPAC, even $25, I highly encourage you to do it because it's for these specific things where NAR and CAR can give us money, or CAR can get money from NAR, fight campaigns like this. It funds issues and also supporting candidates that support the real estate industry. So we're not the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. We don't support a specific party. We support the Realtor Party, which means we support candidates of either party that support our issues. So, and this money can make a huge difference, and it can help us locally. If we really wanted to go after and get people elected and run against some of these elected officials that have opposed these issues important in our industry, we can use that money. We never have, because in our local community, sometimes it's a little bit harder because they're our friends and neighbors, right? But at some point, it is important to do that. $25, I'll take your cash. What else?
Yeah.
Hey, Stephen.
All right, so this might be naive. It's gonna be multifaceted, but
Great.
Lake Hill, I got frustrated and quit following it. So last I heard it was sanitation and they were exploring creating new facilities. Am I basically understanding that?
Yeah, so there's been a long battle between the town of Frisco and the county on water. So that big project on Lake Hill, which is along I-70 and the dam road, one of the biggest things is getting water there. And Frisco has a sanitation district, and could they just plumb in a line? Sounds really easy, but it's a lot of work. And basically it's a battle between Frisco and the county over who was going to pay for it. The county wanted Frisco to pay for it, and Frisco's like, we got the water rights. You have no right to ask for this.
Frisco said that they were okay to do, I think, just under 500 units.
Yeah, they'll do a little.
But then the county wanted 1,000, right?
Yes.
I mean, the numbers, so.
Yeah.
And so that's where the kind of the second part of this comes in is PR without getting too, I mean, it's gonna get political, but I don't hear anything, short-term rentals are part of the problem of the increase. I mean, let's be honest, with locals making it more affordable. But on the other side of it, nothing's being done, or very little is being done that's proactive to try to solve this problem. I feel like there's some room for PR of us to talk to others about trying, the county keeps saying that we can't build our way out of this problem. I mean, I don't understand that. And I'm sure that you can't just build your way out of it, but it seems like it could help. And so I feel like maybe there's some room there for us to start to talk proactively and trying to get others to look at this as there's been a miss over time here, and we keep kicking, things like things like Lake Hill. That's it's been 20 years in the making, and it's going to be another 20 years in the making.
Yeah.
And so just, I don't know, I guess that's the kind of the venting part of this, or the rant.
Absolutely. So a couple answers to that. So first I want to go back to the whole Frisco thing. So Summit County government did get a significant amount of money through all the COVID money that came through, and they have decided to use that money to move forward with the water themselves. So doing it separately from Frisco. I heard that a month or two ago. I don't know the latest on that, but they had a plan that they're like, well, we're just gonna do this ourselves, which is great. They're really focused on it. There's a lot of other problems with Lake County, as you probably all know, like I drive Dillon Dam Road every day. Imagine the traffic if you've got 500 units there at Highway 9 and Dillon Dam. So they got to work with CDOT to make that all work. I do a roundabout. Not the answer, but so that's part of the Lake Hill thing. But yeah, 500 units, that would be awesome, right?
And then we could have been well down the road. I mean, we could be, what was that, a year and a half ago that all kind of got killed or. And you know, I agree with you about the dam road and the, you know, the impact of the dam road, but apparently they had already, you know, figured all that out, and that wasn't really part of that discussion that I heard, that was not going to be an issue at all. And I'm saying that very tongue in cheek, but I'm saying that it just, I just feel like we have some room that we could start to educate, you know, as far as the education piece goes, start to educate other people on or encourage others to try to push a little bit more, right? Not just for Lake Hill, but to come up with other solutions.
Absolutely. And I give Steve some credit in that 2 years ago, when the town of Breckenridge first started talking about short-term rental regulations, we said, hold back. And we, Tamara Pogue, one of the county commissioners, created a small working group of her and Eric Mamula, execs from Copper and Vail Resorts, and some of the towns. Who else was on that, Steve? We were
I don't remember. Toby
Babbage, Mayor of Blue River, and property manager was on that. And we were doing regular calls to look at solutions, like what sort of workforce housing solutions can we come up with? And it died on the vine. You know, Eric was like, no, I'm done. I'm putting my housing person on this call. And then it's like, well, how are we gonna, what is our goal? Oh, I don't know. So it, you know, the group really, it could have been something amazing, like you're talking about, is getting those conversations going on collectively. That's the other thing is, and maybe Renee can speak to this, but the towns don't talk to each other. Everyone thinks that, you know, Summit County community is all so great and everybody knows each other. Fact is, collectively, the towns don't talk to each other about anything. They do mayors and managers meetings once a month, which is pretty much like our town and county manager forum, where they do it once a month amongst themselves to say, this is what we're doing. But they really need, at this point, need to be working together on a solution.
Well, and there's like being on Dillon Town Council. I mean, we met because of County Road 51. We actually met with Phil, who is the interim town manager for the county, and then Josh, because he's been reaching out to me, and we actually had a really good conversation, and we basically, it was good to get together, because otherwise you get emails back and forth and you get text back and forth, and it's not a really good conversation. And yes, the county tries to control everything. No, that's the thing. It's like, and yeah, that is a big problem, is that we don't all get along. And that, you know, the competition is out there, and it's been like that for a long time.
Which is unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate. And I'm trying to do my part as a council member, is to get along or try to at least hear them out. And then they need to hear us out too, because it's a, you know, it's got to be mutual. It can't just be their way. And that's kind of, that's usually how it goes. It's like their way. So.
Exactly.
But you know.
Well, and you know, we've tried to suggest, you know, with the town of Frisco, we're trying to find solutions because they're pretty small, they're built out. And we said, hey, what about working with Lake County and putting some sort of deed restricted property on the north end, you know, right by Copper, as close as they can get to Copper. And interestingly, and this is what they're dealing with. They said, well, we looked into that, but nobody wants to live in Leadville. Well, I think if you build it, they'll come, right? You put in a playground and a coffee shop, and people are gonna go there. I don't know, you're the realtors. So, but then what was interesting to me, and this really tells you a lot, is that then they said, well, that kind of goes against our sustainability goals. Because that means that people are driving 30 minutes to work. And then their emissions, their car emissions. And then my response was, well, I live in Blue River and I commute to Dillon every day, 40 minutes a day.
And what about putting in public transportation then?
Yeah,
Let's get a bus, let's
Yeah.
get some type of transportation for them. There are solutions, but people just shut down the ideas.
They
that are
do.
good.
They
And that's
do.
a great idea. That is a great idea, just go outside north of Silverthorne, you know, find. People don't
Park
have to
County-
live in the.
Yeah.
Dillon or, you know, people don't.
that's right. That's exactly
It's
right.
prime real estate in the town, so.
But the interesting thing is that when he said, then people are commuting, it goes against our sustainability goals. And I said, I live in Blue River and commute 30 minutes every day. The response was, but at least you live in the county. What does that have to do with anything? So they get, I mean, we all get myopic, right? There's times when we're all put our blinders on and, you know, we're not paying attention, but. So if anyone has ideas and would like to be a part of this whole working group that Kaya is not leading, but she's gonna lead. Does anyone have any questions? We've got about 15 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions about Park and Lake counties? Lake County has some pretty strict rules. I was shocked. So Lake County is under a moratorium, no new permits for 2023. I was shocked to see that Leadville's policy is fairly similar to Summit County's policy. They have a class 1 permit for owner occupied units and a class 2. But they've got a 12% maximum, so it's 171 licenses. And they have a very short, she wanted me, when I talked earlier this week, they have a very short wait list of 12 people. So if someone wants to get on that list, you could do something. What else? Park County. It's Park County, when we talk about enforceability, are Park County's policies, Park and Alma and Fair Play, are they enforceable?
No.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Park County brokers because who live there. Because last year when we did a wildfire event, they talked about the fact that they have openings, they have a need for 30 police officers in Park County and they have 9.
Well, if you've driven through Alma in the past year, you can see the 2 cop cars
Yeah.
set up with dummies. That's because
Yeah,
they
they are.
don't actually have a cop.
They decorate them.
So, and it's really sad and it's scary for the people that live, you know, right through that little corridor. People go flying through there all the time. And the state cops have been trying to kind of sit in between Alma and Fair Play and catch people, but they can't be in the limits.
Yeah.
So,
They have
Yeah.
massive staffing issues. That being said, that's not what you tell your client, right? Force them, because then it's gonna come back, you know, somehow that one guy is gonna be out there that one day and find your client, and then you're in trouble. So. Who had questions? Kaya, did you have questions about Park? Who had questions about Park County? Someone did.
I have a quick question about Lake County.
Yeah.
Your moratorium, does that end, doesn't that end in like September or 2023?
What they told me is it is through 2023.
I had some people, I guess it came up as we were looking at land in the Panarch, like by Twin Lakes, and I think that falls under, so you can still buy, you can build, but you can't obtain a license.
Yeah.
you gotta get put on a wait list
Yeah.
for longer there too.
I have a anecdote about the park. I just had a client buy a second home in Park. And I think the general idea is that it's kind of like the Wild West. And so he got snagged up because the previous owners never permitted the deck that they built off the house. And so he was like this close to getting his short-term rental permit. And then the county caught the permit and the county told him straight up, like, maybe 6 months ago, we would have never cared, but we're starting to pay attention to these things and clean that up. So just to throw that out there.
That's
for
great to know.
clients. That was just firsthand experience from a phone call yesterday from one of my clients, so.
Good feedback.
So what are their restrictions then?
In Park County. Let's see.
You have to receive a permit. Permit process is pretty tough because a lot of the spec builders through the years did not permit the basements or the first level of the homes. They left them unfinished. Now a lot of people are selling People are purchasing, realizing there's no CEO on the basement area or the first level. So they're having to go back through the state and the town to get all the approved permits. Can be a huge headache. Plus then they're looking at your septic, which, you know, they need to make sure so many people can fit in the house that has 3 bedrooms or 4 that is only on a 3-bedroom septic. And yeah, and the approval process it's kind of tough, actually. So I
good to know.
encourage you to make sure if you have someone buying over there, reach out to the agent and go to the county and pull what they have. And they will give you what's on file for whatever house you're looking at.
Well, and I have a couple of clients that have called me and they were short-term renting during COVID. And now there's like nothing, like they're getting no business.
For short-term rentals in Park County.
So if you're touting that that Park County is a great place for short-term rental, just be careful because it's saturated.
Okay, fair play, as we already talked about, the licenses are limited to 15 within the town. Remember, it's the town, not the county. And as of this week, there are 5 licenses available. Alma, limited to 10, and there's a waiting list. Any other question? You know, as we talk about all this stuff, do not, if you have a situation, number one, call the town staff. And I'm sending out the list of town staff contacts or emails or phone numbers. Some of the towns you'll see, they give the email of STR at. Don't think that that's some random email. That's because they've got 3 or 4 people working, responding to those emails, just like we have staff at SAR Summit. There's lots of people that are responding and it gets more eyes on your email and gets a faster response. But do not hesitate. Call the town first and then don't hesitate to call me. Don't call anybody at the SAR, anybody else at the SAR office because they don't know the stuff in the detail that I do. So feel free to call me and ask any questions if you need to. But hopefully this document that we're sending out tomorrow morning will help you. And if you see things that aren't on this document that you need, please reach out and we can very quickly update it. So is this helpful? Okay. Yeah. Bye again, group.
Thank you for all your hard work.
And also very much thanks to Summit Mountain Rentals for sponsoring today.
Please make sure to sign it.
Get this. It's ready to go.
That takes
Brilliant, help me with it.
credited. Yeah, like 3 to 6 months actually.
Perfect. Park County doesn't have any limits, but you have.
Old gutters.
I do have
Skylights.
Removal.
Yeah, we can fill that in. Well, you have some skylights you're sick of? They have that,
Either leak or don't leak yet.
do they have the bubble
They are riveting.
foam on them? I just need to replace those with the. Yeah, the new ones. Flat things.
How are you?